Season 2, Episode 1 of Griddyiron Gang. What we got today is a prediction for each division winner as well as over and unders for each team in those divisions. But before we get to that, it is Episode 1, if you don't mind. Please tell the people, who is your favorite player to ever don the number 1 jersey in the NFL?
For me, I'd probably have to go Warren Moon. Just the overall career he had obviously speaks for itself, but he did get to don the purple, for a little while at least. And I just feel like those Viking seasons in the 90s, we had a few different quarterbacks, but those were some good years. When we obviously started to get Chris Carter, and then we drafted Randy Moss, and we were high flying offense.
Yes,
so,
you were.
He got to, and he was, he was a part of that. So that the number 1 though for a quarterback to, you got to be that guy. I feel like
no question. Any kind of single digit, but number 1 especially is like you got to be that guy. For me, number 1 was number one overall pick, Cam Newton. Same kind of concept you had, high flying offense, especially in the MVP season. I don't know what he accounted for, 40 touchdowns or something like that. Something you'll never forget. 15-1, almost had a perfect record. Lost one game, I think it was to Atlanta that season. I think you guys went 14-2. Was that with?
We went we were 15-1, 98.
15-1, okay.
Yeah, but that was with Randall McDaniel or Randall McDaniel. He was a Viking too, but Randall Cunningham obviously. Which is funny. When you think about that year was crazy. I'm not gonna get off topic, but to think that Brad Johnson was a starter that year, got injured, and then Cunningham had an MVP.
As the backups,
he was in the MVP running, not even a full season played. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, he was that guy too, but
no question.
Not wearing number 1.
Yeah, but Warren Moon, that's a good pick. Cam Newton, great pick, and Cam Newton was the number 1 pick. Carolina again in this draft had the number 1 pick, and with that pick they went and drafted Bryce Young. The over-under for Carolina this year is 7.5. They did bring some other veterans into that locker room to help Bryce Young. And if he does struggle, they did bring in Andy Dalton. They brought guys like Miles Sanders in and Hayden Hurst, Adam Thielen, some veterans in there who will help a young quarterback, especially in the middle of the field where a young quarterback needs the help. They do have some defensive veterans over there. They do have J.C. Horn, who they drafted not too long ago, who should be healthy this offseason. I do like what they have on defense over there, along with Brian Burns as well. Like I said, 7.5 for Carolina. I'll let you make your spiel before I give you my answer on their record.
Yeah, I think they got some good things going over there. You said it was at 7.5 though, the over under. Yeah. I'm gonna give them the over on that. Probably around 8 or 9 wins.
That's a big jump.
I feel like they have it in them, and I don't see Bryce Young having a shit start to his career, like record wise. I feel like he'll be right in the middle of the pack. But the thing is why I say that is the NFC South is so bad. Like, it's up for grabs for anyone. Even
it is.
Even lowly Tampa Bay, like, they can technically they have a shot. They're not.
It is.
It's just that how bad that division is.
It is.
So, but yeah, I think slightly over for them. But Bryce Young, it's funny because you look at him; he's not a big guy at all for a quarterback. But I think he's the mental that he's got going on is top notch.
It is.
And so I think that's really gonna, pay dividends early in his career. And to bring a guy in like Adam Thielen to help him along, that's a surefire check down guy at this point in his career.
For sure.
So, I feel like he's gonna probably be the most productive out of the quarterbacks in this past draft.
I think he's set up pretty well to be. He also has a good defense. The offensive line is revamped a little bit, so they should be able to protect him fairly well. The defensive ends and the edges in this league are freaking monsters these days, but they should be able to hold up fairly well in that division, especially, like you said, it's wide open. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, they were all right in the race up until week 16, 17 or something like that last year. I kind of expect the same thing this year, especially with all the moves these teams made in the offseason. We'll get into one of those teams right now. I do have the under for Carolina, though.
Okay.
Tampa Bay, 6.5 is their over-under. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have a lot to say about Tampa Bay.
No.
I think a positive thing I could say about Tampa is hopefully they try and get Mike Evans another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, but that's looking rough with Baker Mayfield.
And it's
and
looking
then if you have to
rough
put
with
Kyle
Baker.
Trask in, it's even
looking
worse.
even worse.
So, yeah, there's going to be a major downtick in production for Evans and Godwin, which is very sad. It's going to be a waste year in their career, and Evans is already up there in age. That's got to be a shit way to like feel like you're going out like that.
They were really left in a bad spot. They won the division last year, so they're not going to have a great pick.
Yeah.
So who they did end up getting is Kalijah Kancey, who's not going to be a game changer, we don't think, but he is going to be a solid defensive player. Outside of that, you bring back some Devin White, I think, and a linebacker here and there, Levante David, and I mean that's pretty much all you have on that roster right now. Like you said, it's going to be left up to Baker, and for that reason, I have this team under, and I'm gonna lock that in. I think this team is going to be the worst team in the division easily.
Easily, yeah. I know I said they technically have a shot at the division, but you don't feel good about having Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback. I mean, throughout camp, it was just constant talk about how many picks him and Trask were going back and forth with, you know, like,
Right.
So it's tough, and I have them under 2 because I just can't justify. I mean, who knows? NFL can be a funny thing sometimes, each week in and week out, but
Yeah, it can be, and
I just you know. What Baker has shown us, he's nothing more than a backup quarterback in this league, and you don't even feel good now about having him as a backup. He'll get the job done. He could pull out 1 or 2 wins maybe, but there's going to be a lot of turnovers, boneheaded mistakes, and a lot of arrogance.
Next team we'll get into is Atlanta, who has an even 8 with their over-under this offseason. Their biggest move, I guess, would be getting Jesse Bates, pairing him with Jeff Okudah, trying to shore up that defensive backfield, Caleb McGarry, Chris Lindstrom, trying to shore up that offensive line to protect Desmond Ridder, their second-year quarterback. The biggest move, obviously, was Bijan Robinson, though, drafting him 8th overall, running back out of Texas. I really loved all the moves that this team made, honestly. Even going back to last year, grabbing Jake Matthews, re-signing him. They're shoring up this offensive line. Algier, Cordell Patterson, now Bijan. They're making their strength a strength even stronger. I think they were one of them in Chicago were the top 2 teams last year in rushing attempts, rushing yards, or something like that. So they definitely utilized the run more than any team in the league. And I like the move in Bijan Robinson. I think he's the best prospect since, what are they saying, Saquon or AP or something like that.
He's going to be good.
And he looks like it, man. He can do a little bit of everything out there. He doesn't look like he has much of a weakness at all. And I think I'm going to go over on this, and I think this will be my division winner here, Atlanta.
Wow. I'm battling back and forth between under or over because for me they fall into that 7 to 10 type win range. But I'll give them, because I think it's going to be a close race between the 3. I'm going to go over, 8-9 wins. The thing is, I just don't feel that confident with Desmond Ridder. I think he's just a souped up Mariota, which ain't saying much.
He's not. He runs a little bit, but not as well. He maybe throws just about the same at this point. He probably can't read the defense as well. He doesn't have the veteran savvy, obviously. So going with him is for sure a question mark. And, I mean, they feel comfortable with it, though. They kind of shored up the defense a little bit. They got Calais Campbell to help out Grady Jarrett over there. They got Bud Dupree, whatever you think of him. But he should help a little bit at least. So I like what Atlanta's doing. I think they're going all in. So I'm going to be a little bit of a believer this year. To finish off this division, we have New Orleans at 9.5. Obviously, their big move was getting Derek Carr in the offseason. They got Jamal Williams from Detroit Lions, a couple of tight ends in the offseason as well. Outside of that, didn't really make any moves on defense, which I think could be a move. I mean, they got some middle-of-the-pack guys, but no big names to kind of shore up the losses that they've had over the past few years. They have their moments on defense, but overall, I think this unit is really taking a blow, and they're going to take a blow overall over the course of this season. 9.5, I think, is a little bit high for my taste on New Orleans, and I got them going under on that.
I'd agree. Like I said, I have them in that 8 to 9 range as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just think their offense is that good to kind of make up for the lack on defense, and I think you're gonna have a rejuvenated, Derek Carr trying to prove something. You got Olave. You still got Kamara,
Yep.
which I don't. Is he out?
He's suspended for a little bit.
Is.
Yeah.
But that's why they went out and got Jamal Williams, because he can hold the fort
For sure.
for that length of time. And then you get Kamara back, and Jamal is still a productive, goal line back. And I mean, he can still catch passes, but he gets you those tough yards that Mark Ingram used to do.
Right.
Used to get. So, and then you bring back old guy Jimmy Graham, where he started it all. Not saying he's gonna do. I don't think they expect him
The
to be
real Jimmy G.
I don't think they expect him to be that version of himself, but he's still got enough in him to be a solid, surefire target for Derek Carr throughout the season.
I agree.
But yes, I'll go under just because 9.5 is a little high for them. But like I said, those three teams, Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta, they will be duking it out.
I misspoke earlier. I did look at my notes, and I was looking at 9.5 for Carolina thinking under, but I do have Carolina going over 7.5 for sure. So we started our last division with the first pick of the draft. We'll start this division with our second pick of the draft, which was C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans with an over and under of 5.5. As you remember, they traded up to the number 3 pick and got Will Anderson, edge out of Alabama. 2 years in a row, they got a lot of average to just above average guys in the offseason, probably 40 or so guys over the course of 2 seasons, and they really filled out that middle of the roster. They have a few guys who I'm looking to take that next step, Derek Stingley being one of them. I do like the running back they drafted out of Florida last year. He had a great rookie season. And I think C.J. Stroud, although I'm not a big believer in these Ohio State quarterbacks, I do think he has the tools. And outside of Justin Fields, I do think he is the most prepared and most NFL ready of these Ohio State quarterbacks. I'm not expecting great things. 5.5. I'm going to pick the under on that. I don't have much faith in Houston this year, but I do like the direction that they're going.
Yeah, if I had to, guess over or under on this one, I'm just going to say under because of the Houston Texans we're accustomed to knowing. But I do love the fact that they got a guy like DeMeco Ryans as head coach now.
No question.
And yeah, you got Damian Pierce as your running back. You got C.J. Stroud now as your quarterback. You still got Stingley over there at the cornerback spot. You got Will Anderson now, who's going to be a force in this league. And then you got Jalen Petrie at safety, who put up a great rookie year last year.
Great rookie year.
So they have pieces in place for DeMeco to build off of and build that team around. So they are headed in the right directions for sure. But this year might just be a lot of growing pains. And so I'll keep them at the under. And I do believe in C.J. Stroud. I can't say to what extent because I have to see a little bit, But like you said, he's one of the most ready for Ohio State quarterbacks that we've seen in quite some time, along with Justin Fields. But with Houston, it's going to be a lot of growing pains with C.J. Stroud. He's going to, throughout preseason, it looks to me like when I watched him, he's just not he doesn't got the confidence yet. Like he's second guessing himself, double hitching on passes and things, minor things like that, where he's got in the NFL, you got a split second to fit in a tight window.
Yeah, you do.
So he's just got to battle through that, and there will be, not going to say he's going to lead the league in interceptions, but there's going to be quite a few turnovers.
From one quarterback to another, we'll slide over to Indianapolis, where we had Anthony Richardson go 4. And the over-under there is 6.5. They did bring over Gardner Minshew as well, just in case they don't know how that project is going with AR. Outside of that, there's not a lot of positives or negatives I have for Colts. I mean, they don't really cross my mind a lot. They're kind of off my radar. I know that Jeff Saturday is gone, so that's a positive. I know that Jonathan Taylor, he's at camp, I think, but he still wants to be traded. He hasn't been traded yet.
No, they said today that they're not trading him because they're not getting significant offers. So that's gonna be. I'll let you finish, but yeah, it's not. I would not want to be a Colts fan.
No, I mean, I don't have much to say outside of that. I mean, I would love to see Jonathan Taylor and AR in the backfield together in some kind of, 2023 offense with a dynamic quarterback running back combo. But outside of that,
I think that's the only shot they have a chance at.
Yeah,
having their most amount of wins is with both them back there.
AR is going to go 13 to 26 every game, 189 yards.
Look, as a Gator fan and watching him,
more than I do.
There's a lot to like because you see the potential and the tools, but there's so much to dislike as well. With the turnovers, there's hardly any touch on the ball, which I'm sure he's worked on and it's probably looking a lot better now. But the last game I watched him play, I think it was early last week or something. I think they were playing the Eagles. But it's gonna be rough to watch as a Colts fan because he's not there yet, and it was a mistake naming him the starter.
Gardner Minshew is more than capable of being your starter, bro. This guy has not had a lot of reps. Last year was his first year starting full time at Florida. We just saw what happened with Trey Lance, who started 1 year. I mean, we've seen it with guys like Mitch Trubisky.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
he just needs time.
You're setting him up to fail big time, and it sucks to see with a guy with that much potential.
Not to mention you have absolutely zero weapons worth note on the outside for him to pass to.
But during that game, the little bit I watched, it was constant overthrows. Like his arm is that strong, and he's not gonna have the patience,
hold back.
Like, and so I think it was a mistake naming him the starter. I think that's a coach trying to put himself before the player, in my opinion. Because I think, why do it unless you're throwing a Hail Mary and you're hoping for the best, but then you look at it from a sense, you got to kind of know you're putting his career in jeopardy.
You are.
So,
off rip.
Which is not a good coaching move for a guy who is a first-year head coach and trying to make a name for himself.
No.
So, yeah, just give me the under because there's not much to say about this team, and their only hope and chance for a decent amount of wins is having JT back there, and that's it. But the way Irsay goes about things and handles things, that's number one for me. He's his own worst enemy because to me he's the biggest cancer in that organization.
Yeah, he's bad. Let's move on to Tennessee, where they're over under 7.5. In the offseason, they brought over Andre Dillard. They drafted Peter Skoronski, offensive lineman out of Northwestern. They drafted Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. And they drafted my guy Tajay Spears, running back out of Tulane. Outside of that, didn't do much except for bring over D-Hop not too long ago, which I think will help immensely. We saw Malik Willis. He was not the answer last year. He had one start. They said that was enough, and they brought in Josh Dobbs to start their playoff game for them. They did bring Ryan Tannehill back, so if you're a Tennessee fan, that is good. If you want to look on the bright side somewhere, I think the defense will be okay. You have Simmons still on the defensive line. Vrabel's obviously a defensive-minded coach, a good coach. He's proven that. A couple of years ago, this team was the number one seed in the AFC for quite some time if they didn't win it. So I think 7.5 for Tennessee. Like initially when you think about it, you're going to go under. But I think with Tannehill, with the addition of Traylon Burks last year, him getting the reps at number one, now moving back to number two. D-Hop, when healthy, went on his game. I still think is a top 5 receiver. Derrick Henry, when healthy, went on his game as a top 5 running back. You can keep the offense on the field. When they're not on the field, you have a defense that can hold up with most units in the league. I think Tennessee's going to go over, surprising a lot of teams this year.
Yeah, I'll give them the over too, just because I feel like they're too good to be that bad of a team to be under 7 wins.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't got much to say about them. They're just like they're a very good 8-win team. Like
right.
they're that solid average team.
Yeah,
like,
they are,
and they'll have some games that look really good,
Pittsburgh-esque,
and then others that you're gonna be like, oh, that's why they're middle of the pack.
Right.
So, yeah, I think And you know what? And what's saving them too is from a very bad year is I believe in Mike Vrabel as head coach. I think he's a very solid head coach, and I'm not going to put him in the likes of Belichick or Tomlin or Reed or anything like that. But guys want to play for him. He keeps the locker room together, and they go to war for him. So that in itself, and then having the playmakers you do, yeah, give me over because they're right there, 8-9 wins.
Okay. Move on to Jacksonville. Their over-under is 9.5. Last year, they obviously won the division at 10-7. They franchised Evan Ingram, who did come on strong at the end of the season. They drafted Anton Harrison, offensive lineman, to try and protect Trevor Lawrence a little more. Calvin Ridley obviously will return from his suspension for gambling a little bit. Hopefully he bet on himself this year because I think Jacksonville has some big aspirations to improve vastly in this division, especially with the division being down a little bit. 9.5 I thought was a little low because I do think the team got better in pretty much all aspects of the team. But I do barely have them getting the over on this.
For me, I got over, but it's 10, 11 wins.
I have the same 10 wins.
And I think that's enough to win this division, obviously. And
it is.
They'll get in the playoffs. But I think you're going to see a really good year from Trevor Lawrence. Now you got Ridley. Ridley's going to have a phenomenal year. I think that 1 year being suspended for gambling is going to, I think it lit a fire under him to prove that he's still, relevant in this league.
Mm-hmm.
So and Doug Peterson's a good coach. So
he is.
I think they're set up to make the playoffs, and but that's about all I can say because the AFC is so tough.
AFC is very tough. Luckily, they have a poor division this year. I do only have them getting 10 wins because I don't think they are going to sweep in the division. I have them with one division loss. Somebody's going to get them in here. That's just my thought process behind it. But yeah, they'll win the division, but they don't blow me away at all. In the NFC West, we'll start with Arizona. Over under 5.5.
They might not win a game.
Most of no Kyler Murray this year. And if they aren't going to win a game for the first half of the season, if Kyler Murray's out, I don't think he's going to come back. And in that case, this might be a 2-3 win team. I don't have a lot to say. The draft, Paris Johnson, B.J. Ojulari. I mean, okay, that's fine. No game changers. You traded Isaiah Simmons to the Giants, who we'll talk about later. But that was a bust. I think you're going to be the worst team in the league.
Yep.
You're for sure going to be the worst team in this division. That's no question. You're in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. You're for sure in the front running for that. So don't worry about it. Worst team in the league is definitely up for contention.
I agree. There ain't much to say about this team. And I think they're already talking about, I think they're already having internal discussions about whether or not they just commit to sitting Kyler for the whole year.
They just cut Colt McCoy.
So, and you're playing a 23, 24-year-old undrafted quarterback as your starter. Yeah, good luck. And
obviously you traded D-Hop.
You gave up Isaiah Simmons for nothing. They went the days they were here in Minnesota joint practicing before the game. I was getting alerts constantly throughout the day. I think it was Thursday before the game. Arizona traded this guy. Arizona traded this guy. Like they know what they're doing.
Yep. They're cleaning house right now. Under easily Los Angeles Rams 7.5 over under. They didn't really make a lot of moves in the offseason. I mean, the positives for them, you have a healthy Stafford, you have a healthy Kupp, and you have a healthy Donald going into the season.
Yeah.
The negatives, you're honestly not too far behind Arizona as far as talent goes. And the real negative is you don't have any of your draft picks. Mm-hmm. At least if Arizona loses, they'll have their draft
You're lucky you got that one Super Bowl out of the deal.
Yeah, you really are.
So,
because you'll be able to eat off that for another year or two.
Yep. And for me, it's an easy under for them with it being 7.5 because, like you said, they didn't do much. And then I just read a report or a story the other day about how Matt Stafford's saying that he doesn't know how to lead guys.
What is he talking about? Oh my goodness.
It's just he doesn't want to be there.
So we were kind of talking before the show. LA might be one of those teams where you have stars and they just might be asking out. If this team is 2-7, 2-6 whenever the trade deadline is, does Aaron Donald ask out? Does Matt Stafford, does he have a rib injury? Does he sit out for the rest of the season?
And those guys, look, they're at points in their career where they could hang it up if they want. And I think if Donald has to play through a whole year with this team, he's going to contemplate retirement. Unless he gets an offer in the offseason that he really likes,
right?
And it's for a team that he knows he can win with. Because he's still got a lot left in him. But he's also at the point, too, I think, where he's proven enough.
What is the going rate for Aaron Donald at 33 next year?
I think it's a premium still, but it's going to be at a 1-2 year deal.
Baltimore first-round draft pick?
Hey, you tell me.
Yeah, I think under easily for LA Rams. If you have anything else to add, go ahead. If not, we'll move on.
No, I'm good on LA. Shoot, it might be McVay's last year too.
It might be. I mean, and they traded away Allen Robinson. I mean, they have no weapons anywhere.
And if you think about it, because they went all in for those early years with McVay.
Yeah, they did. Back to the Todd early days. Yeah.
He's been dealing with something each offseason because his coaching staff is getting poached left and right.
Yeah, they're getting, he's
so
like
he's
Nick
working
Saban.
with guys that he isn't really handpicked anymore.
Right.
Which makes coaching even tougher for you.
Yeah.
And the fact that after the Super Bowl win, it was reported that him and Donald were contemplating retirement before the game.
Yeah.
So, like, LA is due for a complete rebuild, and they have no pieces to rebuild with.
No, they're going to have to ship those guys off sooner or later. Sooner the better. I mean, honestly, you're not in contention to win, and they have the most value now. So, I know it's tough, but that might have to be the way. Next, we have Seattle over under 8.5. Obviously, they brought back Drew Lock. The big move, signed Geno Smith. I ain't right back, but I did write my name on that check. Devin Bush, Bobby Wagner, helped that linebacking core. This team, I don't know. I think lightning kind of struck last year. I don't know if it's going to strike twice. I think Geno played out of his mind. For a lot of the year, he was top 10. Probably ended up as a top 15 quarterback. 12, 13 in that range. The defense, not very good, although they have some playmakers and some good rookies on that side of the ball who played well. I think Jamal Adams, along with Bobby Wagner, should add some veteran help to this unit over there with all those young guys. However, I just don't see this team performing like they did last year, even though I like a lot of the pieces they have. I love K9. I love Jackson Smith as a third option.
Mm-hmm.
When you can get a guy like that as a third option, that is deadly in this league.
Yep.
It's just really, as much as I love Geno, it's really just, it's on him to me, honestly. I think the defense is taking a step in the right direction. The offensive line is taking a step in the right direction. And I'm just hesitant to say it because I love what Geno did last year. And 8.5, it seems like a middle of the pack record, but it's not going to be easy to get to even in a weak NFC.
No.
Geno's just going to have to prove it to me. I'm going to go slightly over, but I'm wary about it.
I'm going to go over because I think they can do it. But the main factor for me is Pete Carroll's a proven coach. He's been doing good things with getting this roster reconstructed where they can still compete, be relevant. And a lot of it has to do with Geno because of last year, obviously, the way he played. But I think it might not be as good, but it'll be in that ballpark still because of the fact that your wide receiver core is so deadly. And if you can't put up numbers with that type of talent,
true,
you're gonna have your head on a chopping block with your local fan base and people who called themselves believers in you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I believe that he'll still be very solid this year, and I do think that they can sneak in as a wild card.
Yeah, I do love the draft pick of Devin Witherspoon, pairing him with Tariq Woolen from last year.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get two young guys on the outside that you can build around, I mean, that's just dangerous. That's Legion of Boom 2.0 right there. Last but not least, San Francisco, 11.5 is their over-under. Sam Darnold was brought over in the offseason, but the story is Brock Purdy. He seems to be healthy now. We know what he did last season. Anybody under Kyle Shanahan really looks like a top 15 quarterback, but Brock Purdy really seemed like he was on his way to leading this team to a potential championship until he ended up getting hurt in the NFC Championship game. They got Javon Hargrave to add to that defensive line, so him and Bosa and the boys are going to be getting after it. I do love San Francisco, man. It's the same old song. Offense, you might have a top 5 weapon room as far as Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey, Ayuk, excuse me. You did trade Trey Lance, which he could have been a weapon. He could have not been, but he isn't on the team any longer. Defensively, you have Bosa on the front line. You have Fred Warner in the middle, and then you have Troy Polamalu Jr. in the backfield. So you have elite guys at each level, probably the best linebacking duo in the league. Kyle Shanahan, I mean, you don't need to say anything about him. He's a top 5 coach. I think we can all agree on that. San Francisco over under at 11.5. It's tough to win 12 games in this league, man. That's elite territory. I think they're going to clean up on this division. They'll go 5-1. I think it's going to help them a lot. I do have them going 11-6 though.
I'm going to say that they're going to go over. I'd say 12 or 13 wins. I think overall, I truly believe they have one of, if not the best overall roster in the NFL, just top to bottom, the depth they have. But they got star playmakers at every level, and even offensive line. You have the best left tackle in the game. And when you're loaded like that, and you have a coach like Shanahan, man, like you guys are just deadly. And I think getting rid of Trey Lance when they did right ahead of the season was a very smart move on them. Number one, just cut your loss and admit you made a mistake in one of the worst draft trades ever. But at the same time, you don't have to go through a whole season with him on the roster answering questions constantly. Even if, like, say, Brock Purdy has a down game. What are you going to do? Do you think you'll turn it over to... Obviously, Darnold beat him out. He'd be third string regardless. But now without him, you don't have that 3-headed quarterback room saying who's going to be the next guy up next week or this and that. This is Purdy's team. Yes, you got Darnold, who's a bigger name for backup,
right?
And he can go in there, I think, and I think with Shanahan as head coach, he can win them games. But this is Purdy's team. I think he's healthy now. I think he will stay healthy, and him and Shanahan together, I think that's a deadly 1-2 punch combo for coach quarterback. And Purdy, he might not be an MVP candidate. He might not be, in the conversation with Mahomes and Burrow and that Lamar and Allen, but he's going to be creeping up there as one of those household names.
For a lot of these teams, the quarterback will be the question. This is probably the best example of that. Like we mentioned, elite offensive line, best lineman in the league, potentially in Trent Williams. Elite defense, elite guy at every level. Elite wide receiver / flex player in Debo Samuel. Kittle, obviously top 5. McCaffrey, top 5. So it's on Brock Purdy. I mean, obviously, every quarterback under Kyle Shanahan has thrived, but can Brock Purdy get the team over the hump?
Yeah.
So it's essentially on him. I do have this team going 11-6. You had 12-13, you said?
12 or 13 wins.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I can see that too. Staying out west, we'll go to the AFC division. Starting off with Las Vegas, where the over-under is 7.5. Big move for them, bringing back their running back Josh Jacobs. Big move for them as well, bringing over quarterback Jimmy G after getting off of Derek Carr. Jacoby Myers, after he gave them a win as a member of the New England Patriots, he decided to start as wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders this year. They drafted Tyree Wilson, edge out of Texas Tech, and Michael Mayer, tight end, to get Jimmy G a little bit of help over there on the offensive side of the football after losing Darren Waller. So I think Vegas at 7.5, they have potential. Obviously, the quarterback and the coach have some familiarity playing with each other in New England. Not a team that I believe in heavily for the same reasons I haven't believed in them heavily over the past few years. The secondary, the defense in general is just really bad. And then the offensive line has been a question mark for the past few seasons. For those reasons, I do have Vegas being under 7.5.
I agree. I got under as well. I don't think Jimmy G's the answer. I think Josh McDaniels is not head coach material.
He's fool's gold. I think Jimmy G's been successful with 2 guys who can make anybody successful.
Yeah. And I just don't think Josh McDaniels, like I said, he's just not head coach material. Great coordinator, but he's not a great leader. He doesn't obviously. I mean, GM and coach work hand in hand putting the roster together. He hasn't brought in guys that can do much for you. I mean, they have decent guys, but they're not overly talented. And so in that division, in that conference, they don't do anything for me.
I agree. Moving on to Denver, over under of 8.5. Brought over some offensive line, some defensive line. Kind of trying to start over with a new coach, Sean Payton, started from the inside out. Offense doesn't have great weapons out there. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is really in a position where he needs to prove himself.
This is a make or break year for him.
Yeah, it really is. We know he's a great route runner. He has great hands. Part of that could be the quarterback situation out there in Denver, but I think this is going to be the year where Denver kind of puts it together. They've been looking for a quarterback over the past few years to kind of match the level of defense they have, or at least be competent so that the defense is able to be taken advantage of. I mean, they've had an elite defense over the past, I don't know, however many years, top 10 defense, and the quarterback, whether it be Joe Flacco, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, they just haven't been able to get the job done.
Yep.
Add Russell Wilson to that list. Now, I think the defense has taken a step back, even though they have great rookie quarterback last year in Patrick Surtain. But Russell Wilson, he's obviously the question mark on this team. Javonte Williams is a good running back. He can keep the chains moving. Like we said, Jerry Jeudy, he's going to have to be the number one receiver and show that kind of in a position like CeeDee Lamb was in last year. 8.5. I do like the addition of Sean Payton, but I'm going to have to say under for Denver.
I agree. It's under for me. I don't know. I think that it's either going one or two ways. Russell's going to have a bounce back year and be another great quarterback this year, or he kind of repeats last year and he's kind of, the career is up in the air right now.
Yeah.
Which I have to lean that way just based off of last year. I just don't think that Nathaniel is enough to blame for Russell Wilson's ineptitude.
No.
So I have to lean that way again this year. I think Sean Payton is going to get frustrated very quickly, and we're going to hear rumors out in Denver, how he's looking to make a change at quarterback at some point and this and that. And so I don't know. Sean Payton's in a rude awakening because it's not good old New Orleans for him anymore.
No, you don't have pull like that out here.
So yeah, give me the under for them, and not much else to say on them.
What do you have to say about the Los Angeles Chargers over under at 9.5?
The Chargers, man. I'm gonna go slightly over. I think they're like a 10-win team, 11-win team. They have the potential to be better than that, but number one, they need to stay healthy, especially on defense.
That's always their big thing.
And Mike Williams always getting hurt as well.
Keenan Allen as well.
So it's just the health aspect, and then Herbert taking another little step forward in proving himself and proving he can be that guy and that type of leader for a team. I think having Eric Kendricks come over from Minnesota in the middle of that defense, that's going to be a big boost, I think.
For sure.
But so I think slightly over, but I just don't see them being a team I'm worried about in the playoffs.
No, they're like San Francisco light to me. Not really elite anywhere, but they're very good, but they're elite at quarterback. So I think Justin Herbert needs to take that step next year to solidify himself as a top 5 quarterback. I think we all would have him right there about 5 or 6 right now. But I think if he shows out this year, doesn't blow a lead to Jacksonville in the playoffs like they did last year, he can take that next step and solidify a spot in the top 5. Like you said, though, health for this team, that's always the biggest factor. Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, whoever it may be. Obviously, you mentioned the offensive guys. Always a big factor for this team, and they always seem to go down at the wrong time, especially their biggest names, which is always crazy. Austin Eckler, I know he was a little disgruntled in the offseason. I'm not really sure what happened with that situation, if it got resolved or not. But 9.5 for this team and 8.5 for Denver. I think that says everything everything you need to know about this Los Angeles team, and they do not live up to their potential. I think this year they will surpass that 9.5, just barely, 10-7. But I think this is a team that should be in the 11.5 category, along with Kansas City, Buffalo, teams like that. So this is a really big make or break year for me as far as being on the Chargers bandwagon, if so to speak. They got Quentin Johnson, so when those other guys do go down, if they do go down, hopefully you have another guy there who can pick up some of that offensive load from the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. I don't really think Los Angeles has an excuse to not be an 11-win team this year.
Yeah, I agree.
To finish it off, the Super Bowl champs, 11.5 over under Kansas City Chiefs, brought back Jerick McKinnon. They did lose Orlando Brown to who some would say the team that owns them, the Cincinnati Bengals, but they did replace him with Donovan Smith, Jawan Taylor. They drafted a defensive end. So I think with him, Karl Loftus, that's going to be big, especially with Chris Jones potentially saying he'll hold out till week 8 or past week 8, whatever he's saying. I think overall this might be the best offensive line they have, even though they don't have that superstar like they had. Weapons-wise, they don't have Tyreek, but I think what they've done over the past few years, this is the best weapon room that Patrick Mahomes has had so far. Defensively, the defensive backfield scares me still. And then if Chris Jones isn't going to play, it terrifies me because that's always been a problem under this regime. And I don't think they've done enough to fix it. They're trying to with Trent McDuffie and guys like that. But I think that would be my biggest concern for Kansas City. As far as 11.5, 12-5, I think they can do that for sure.
I'll go over for them. I mean, look, it's Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, like Andy Reid. Yes, they're a team, like I compared to kind of the Vikings last year. The offense is great. The defense gives up points and is a letdown.
Yep.
And is not clutch. But the difference is between those two teams, Mahomes can pull shit out of his ass. And
a literal magician, bro.
He's the best quarterback in the league. What else can you say? I mean, until they prove to us that they're now no longer that type of team.
Yeah.
You got to keep rocking with them.
Yeah.
They're the team to beat in all of football. They're the team to beat in the AFC. They're up top for me.
So moving on to the NFC East, we have Washington at 7.5 for the over/under. Brought back Deron Payne on the franchise tag, and that's about it. I mean, the positive things for them is they have him and Terry McLaurin. Outside of that, there's not a lot to say about Washington. They did get Jacoby Brissett, who is one of the better backups, if not the best backup in this league. But it sounds like they're going to go in Sam Howell's direction as a starting quarterback. So in my mind, that indicates to me we're going to tank the season. Because you have a capable quarterback that can get you 8 wins. He's better than Taylor Heineke, who got you almost into the playoffs last year. Jacoby Brissett is better in my estimation. If you have him, same weapons. I mean, if you just try and go for it. I mean, Philadelphia is not that scary. That's one team. That's one spot. That's just my thought process behind it. I know all these other teams in your division made the playoffs last year, but you were not far behind them.
No.
But to go with Sam Howell, make that decision, I'm for sure going to go with the under for Washington this year.
Yeah, I got under as well. Look, I don't know what to expect from Sam Howell. You know, I don't envision good things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't, and I don't think they have a shot against Philadelphia or Dallas. So I mean, look, it's an easy under for me. I'm not gonna say they're gonna be one of the worst teams in the league, but you know, they're another team. They're kind of like an average team, but the lower end.
I'm not gonna say they don't have a shot. They have a really good defensive line, a fairly good secondary. They have Terry McLaurin, Dotson, so they have decent weapons.
They do.
The running back, I'm blanking on his name. Is it Brian Robinson?
Yeah.
Brian Robinson. So, I mean, they're okay. If you put Jacoby in there, I would feel comfortable with saying 8-win team.
that's the thing though, is like I'm basing this off Sam Howell. Like,
Exactly,
and,
yeah.
and that's what I'm like. They've proven last year they can play with anyone and they can, give fits. But what do we know? What can we say about Sam Howell that makes you confident in saying we can win it? We can for sure win these set games on this schedule.
Right.
Like I don't know how he's going to be with turnovers. I don't know how smart he is with decision making. Like, even as much as I love Terry McLaurin, he doesn't put the fear of God in me to have to defend him.
Next, we'll go to New York, who's over under is 8.5. Obviously, they brought back Daniel Jones, signed him to a big deal. Brought back Saquon Barkley, 1-year deal, I believe. Pretty much brought back every receiver they had, and then brought over Darren Waller. So they got a lot of help for Daniel Jones. There should be no excuses on this offensive side of the football for New York. Defensively, they re-signed Dexter Lawrence. They drafted cornerback Deonte Banks. And just to add to that wide receiver core, they got a wide receiver, Jalen Hyatt, out of Tennessee, who was a burner, speed demon, 9-route god in college, and he burned Alabama plenty of times last year. But like we mentioned earlier, they did get Anthony Simmons in a trade from Arizona.
Anthony?
There's a player in the NBA named Anthony Simmons.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this, but it's Isaiah Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons. Wow, so I didn't even realize that. Okay, so I have it on here. It's wrong too. Isaiah Simmons. I do know he went to Clemson. He is a linebacker safety hybrid. The plan for him in New York is to play linebacker, even though he's probably best at safety. He wants to play safety. He wanted to play safety in Arizona. But we'll see how that works. In Wink Martindale's system, he's probably just going to be blitzing off the edge. And after the quarterback will probably be an 8, 9, 10 sack guy this year. I think he has the tools to be that. I think that's a great addition for this team. Giants, Daniel Jones really didn't have a great statistical year last year. I think it's very likely that he can duplicate that.
Yeah.
With Saquon Barkley, I guess he's happy, supposedly. He got a 1-year deal. He's going to ball out. You have 5 receivers that you can spread the ball around to.
Waller's a big key, though.
Waller will be your 6th.
Staying healthy, too.
Offensive line, you revamped that over the past few years. Defensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau and those guys. I mean, New York Giants, on paper, really good-looking team. And I think they're actually going to hit the over on this 8.5.
I think they're going to be over, too, and I think they're going to be giving Dallas and Philly a run for their money. Look, I can't say much or add much to what you already said about him, but the only thing that I just don't like about him and never will is Daniel Jones. I just am not a big believer. I think he's the most average looking quarterback.
Bro,
like
he beat us both last year. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. I know, but you know what? The thing is, so we beat him end of season,
Week
regular
16
season,
or whatever it was.
But then we come back, and it was pretty much the Wink Martindale effect.
Yeah,
his defense gave us fits, and we didn't. He threw shit at us that we didn't know how to overcome.
Right.
So that's what good coaching is and what it does. And I think they have that type of coaching on that team to put them on that over 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they have a lot of talent, but it's just the coaching is what's going to do it for them I think the coaching is going to take them where they go, because Daniel Jones is not going to they're not going to go where Daniel Jones goes. Like, he's going to be out there just
25
doing average
touchdowns,
shit.
Right.
Like
3,000 yards maybe.
So I think, and Waller's got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big thing to watch, because as long as he's in, that's a great target for Daniel Jones and a safety net. But we got to see.
Waller is Kyle Pitts the next Waller? Just a guy who has phenomenal potential and doesn't really ever do anything.
It's a sad thing to watch.
Because Waller doesn't do anything. What do you have, like one good year, and then he just doesn't produce, doesn't stay healthy, isn't eligible, whatever the case may be. Different situation for Kyle Pitts, but over for New York for both of us. Next one, move to Dallas, 9.5. Brought over Brandon Cooks in a trade, Stephon Gilmore in a trade, so you have an offensive weapon and a defensive weapon, 2 positions of need at DB and wide receiver. Drafted Mozzie Smith on the defensive line to help out, and then they drafted a replacement for Dalton Schultz, who they lost in the offseason. Kept it quiet, but I thought the Dallas moves were effective this season. Typically not something you see from Jerry Jones in the organization. Haven't heard much of anything from Dallas, and I think that's a good sign for this team. They actually got off of Zeke. They did it quietly. If you follow the league for the past 7 years, you know how Jerry feels about Zeke. So to get off of him, I think that's a big move for this team. Tony Pollard is going to be the for sure number one running back on this team. The guy they drafted out of Kansas State, Deuce Vaughn, he looks like he's going to be a nice little addition to that backfield.
Ping ball.
But
ping ball. Whatever.
Ping pong.
Damn pinball.
Pinball.
Yeah, damn pinball out there.
Fucking me up. But again, this is on Dak. CeeDee Lamb has proven that he can be the number one receiver. The defense is solid. It's on Dak. Keep the turnovers down. Stay healthy. We know that you can throw for 4,000, 5,000 yards. You got to start winning games, though. You got to start winning playoff games. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Him and McCarthy, we know how that combination makes me feel. Hate it, but it's time to put up or shut up this year. It really is. Because who we're about to talk about next, they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No. What did you give your over/under for them?
Over.
Yeah, I got Dallas over too. I think they're at minimum a 10-win team. That's but I think they're even above that. So I don't know, man. It comes down to Dak. Look, great regular season team. Not a good playoff team.
Yeah. Finishing off the division, we have the Philadelphia Eagles over under 10.5. Biggest news for them in the offseason was shoring up Jalen Hurts, signing him to a big deal. They got Rashad Penny. They traded for DeAndre Swift from Detroit. So they lose Miles Sanders, but they have 4 or 5 running backs that are very capable back there in the backfield to add along with Jalen Hurts. Bradbury and Slay got those guys under good contracts. 3 years, $80 million or something combined. So for the production that those guys produced, that's fair. Even though they're a little bit up there in age, I think Darius Slay is still one of the better cornerbacks in the league. And Bradbury over these past few seasons has been elite at his position. For Philadelphia, Kelsey, Cox, Graham, they all came back. They all came back for a reason. I think this team is going all in. We know that they got Jalen Carter in the draft at 9, who was probably the best prospect in the draft. Mm-hmm. He fell for, off the field issues. But let's not forget that they got Jordan Davis last year as well. So they're going to replace Fletcher Cox. They're going to replace Brandon Graham with those 2 guys who are probably the two of the better prospects of both their classes. Nolan Smith, who they have at linebacker. I mean, obviously, offensive line, top 5 unit in the league, probably the deepest offensive line in the league. So, yeah, you don't want to lose Kelsey, but when you do, you'll be good for the future. This season, they're going all in, though. I love that about Philly, and I think they go over on this 10.5.
I agree. Over. Kind of what I said about Kansas City, too. They're the top dogs. That's the team you're going after. Mm-hmm. And until they prove otherwise, I can't deny them. Like, that's my number one for the NFC. Even though I still think San Francisco is the team that I like the most. But what Jalen Hurts has done, how deep they are, I mean, the rotation they got it.
Man, that's tough.
In the backfield now, they can constantly go without stopping. There's no weakness in their roster. Like I said about San Francisco, I think they're one of, if not the most
complete roster.
But I would argue, if I had to argue, it'd be Philadelphia next, or
vice versa.
Slightly, or vice versa. Yeah. Like, so I think when it comes down to it, if I had to guess right now, those would be my 2 representatives in the NFC Championship again. Mm-hmm. But obviously we've got a long season to wait and see. But yeah, give me the over on them, and I think that there's, like you said, they're going all in. And when you have this pretty much the same roster with a couple more beneficial pieces that you added, how do you disagree with them making the a repeat performance?
AFC East, New England Patriots over under at 7.5. They bring over Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, and Zeke Elliott. Not a lot of moves. I think this team has lacked speed on the offensive side of the football, and with these three guys, they did not gain any of that.
Mm-mm.
But I think they're all good players that can contribute to this offense, especially now that they have an offensive coordinator. Mac Jones, I think, is going to look more like the rookie Mac Jones instead of the sophomore year Mac Jones. I do think he's going to take a step forward and be even better than he was that rookie year. Yeah, he made a Pro Bowl, but that was kind of fluky. I think he's going to be a very formidable quarterback and solidify himself into that 12 to 16 range this year. New England at 7.5. I think this division is honestly going to be a little bit tougher than people expect. My concern for this team is their front seven, outside of the division being tough as it is. Their back four are good. They have a lot of young players back there that produce and a couple veterans back there that help the young players. I am going to go slightly over for New England here with that 7.5.
Yeah, I think they can be an 8-win team easily. I mean, you still got Bill Belichick as a head coach. Look, it's not the most sexy roster out there, but they're going to be a tough-nosed football team like they always are. So, yeah, slightly over makes sense to me. I don't have anything really good or bad to say about them. They're just there. They're New England now. They're not Tom Brady New England. They're just New England.
Miami, over under 9.5. They bring over Mike White to back up Tua. They brought back all three running backs. Obviously, they bring over Jalen Ramsey, who they're looking at a December return date, but they're saying he could miss the whole season, so we're definitely going to have to monitor that because Miami is another one of those teams who went all in this season. They've been going all in over the past few seasons. They've solidified their offensive line, if healthy, one of the better O-lines in the league. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey was a big move. Tyreek Hill last year paired him up with Jalen Waddle. I mean, that's a dynamic duo, if not the best dynamic duo at wide receiver in the league. This team, they have all the weapons you need on offense. They have good defensive backs on defense. But I do have concerns with Tua's health and that front seven on Miami's defensive side. For that reason, I do have Miami going under 9.5.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd put them around, 8 or 9 wins, but I'd give them 9 wins if I had to guess.
Yeah, exactly 9.
So for me, it's just I don't have that much faith in Tua. He's capable of doing it, but I don't know, man. Obviously the health is a concern as well, but I don't see.
He's up and down. Like, he'll go 20 or 28 for 4 touchdowns, but then he'll go 12 or 22, 140 yards.
Like, yeah,
have a terrible game.
He makes those games he has those games where it makes you forget about those good ones.
Lamar does the same thing, but the thing with Tua is he does not have the legs that Lamar has.
Right.
So it's really noticeable when you're going 12 or 22, 3 and outs, because you can't move the chains because you're not an athlete, because you don't want to get hit, whatever the case may be. I do think bringing over Mike White is a good move, because this team is definitely playoff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, they have potential for the playoffs, no question, and to go deep into the playoffs, especially if they get a guy like Jalen Ramsey back. Mike White was a quarterback who was helping the Jets, try and reach that goal last year and was playing very well for that team. But as a backup, you do have your limitations, and we saw what his limitations were. Miami, though, yeah, under. Next, speaking of those Jets, the same 9.5 over under. The big news, Aaron Rodgers, he brings over his boys, Lazard and Cobb. Miko Hardman decides to join the crew. Dalvin Cook recently decided to join the crew. So him paired with, what's my guy's name back there? Breece Hall. Who I think he'll be ready for the start of the season. I know he tore up his knee last year, but Garrett Wilson, those guys on the outside perimeter, they're going to be made looking like superstars with Aaron Rodgers throwing in the ball. The offensive line is somewhat of a concern for me. Mekhi Becton hasn't been healthy. They tried to shore that up a little bit last year in the draft. This year they got some defensive help. Will McDonald, I know Robert Saleh loves that. They're talented as hell. My only question is what kind of Rodgers are we going to get? Because this team I can see be AFC Championship contenders. I can also see Rodgers be disgruntled for some reason, not buy in for whatever reason, and they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs.
Yeah. See, for me, My biggest concern is I think the hype is so much, and with them not having that kind of hype or any sort of hype really as of late until you get Rodgers. I mean, how well do you handle that as a team? I mean, you're gonna let one bad game affect the chemistry? You're gonna let it turn into a skid? I don't know, but if I had to guess, though, I'm gonna say because of the past few years in Green Bay and the constant disgruntlement we've grown accustomed to hearing between him and the front office and this and that, and the friction between him and LaFleur, I think we're gonna get another. I don't want to say it, but might be another MVP type season from Rodgers. I think he's gonna have that type of, like, he's out there playing backyard football, having fun, doing things with this team that he hasn't been able to with the Green Bay as of late. And yeah, I would put them, if I'm guessing right now, I'm gonna say they're in the AFC Championship contention.
Buffalo, whose over under is 10.5, and who I think is, how do I say this? They're the most hyped team who has not achieved what we believe. Like, we both had this team to win the Super Bowl, especially after Week 1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
You wiped the floor with the Rams, who won the previous Super Bowl. So our preseason pick was Buffalo. We see that performance. We're like, Buffalo's got it. And they end up coming up short. Not even in the AFC Championship game. Not even in these Super Bowls.
Yep.
And I think this is really the year where we have to look at Josh Allen the same way we're going to have to look at Justin Herbert and really decide, are you really that guy? I know we love you. I know your arm talent is amazing. You're 6'5", 240. You can run over guys. You can run around them. You hurdle over them. You can throw the ball 60 yards over your head, left-handed, whatever the case may be. You have all the pieces around you. My only concern is you might not have Von Miller Week 1.
Yep.
Outside of that, you have all the pieces around you for the whole season to be successful. You brought over Damian Harris, so him paired with Cook. You don't have to be relying on Josh Allen like you have been with running the ball on every short yardage situation. You have two capable running backs who can do that for you.
Yeah.
You got 3 offensive guards, headlined by Connor McGovern. So you have protection for Josh Allen. He doesn't have to be scrambling back there in the pocket, taking extra hits. You drafted Dalton Kincaid to replace Kevin Knox. And then you drafted Osiris Torrance, your boy from Florida, offensive guard. So you have versatile offensive linemen. You have versatile weapons offensively. Gabe Davis may not be a number 2, but I think Diggs is for sure your number 1 still. I think he's still a top 5 caliber receiver. Buffalo has no excuses, and for that reason, this is my last year believing in them, and I'll take the over at 10.5.
I'll give them the over at 10.5 as well. I think this is, to me, this is going to be another year of great regular season, come up short in the playoffs. Get Diggs even more disgruntled because he can't get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And you start having questions about Josh Allen if he can put a team over that hump. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the season brings, but that's, I'll give them the over because they are that good still. But it's a tough AFC, and I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower to keep up with a couple of these other teams.
What you've all been waiting for. The AFC and NFC North are up next. First, we'll hit the AFC, starting with the Cleveland Browns. Over under at 8.5. Brought over Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson to help out Myles Garrett on that front line. I think that'll be very beneficial. That guy's double-teamed all game. These guys are more than capable of beating a single team. Dalvin Tomlinson might require a double team in the middle. So you might have Zadarius or Myles Garrett one-on-one on the end. I mean, that's going to be dangerous all year long if those guys can stay healthy. They drafted a wide receiver in Cedric Tillman. I think him and Amari Cooper, they're going to be decent. I think, Amari's not the highest tier number 1 to me. He's kind of a mid-tier Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, if I could compare it to a quarterback kind of wide receiver. But I do think he has the tools to be what this team needs because you don't need a 1,600-yard receiver. You have the best running back in the game in Nick Chubb. Obviously, the biggest concern for this team, Deshaun Watson. Before he went through his off-the-field issues, he was a solidified top 5 quarterback, and that was with no weapons out there and used to the team who has never had any kind of direction whatsoever. You come to Cleveland, you look like you haven't played in 3 years. So now that you have an offseason with the guys, you actually get to be in the facilities and whatnot. We're going to see what you look like. But until we see what you look like, I'm going to have to give you the under. Because this division is tough. This whole conference is tough, but this division is tough too.
Yeah, I can see it going over or under, but to be safe, I'm going to go under slightly. Just a team that can be 8 wins. I think you're going to see a major improvement in Deshaun this year. Obviously, basing off of what we saw last year, you can't get much worse than that for him. So, big bounce back from Deshaun Watson. You're going to have a lot better pressure rates and win rates with those guys up front on defense.
Yep.
So, like I said, I can see it going over or under, but I'll stick with the slight under at 8 wins.
Moving on to Pittsburgh, also at 8.5 for the over/under, bringing over Allen Robinson, bringing over veteran defensive back Patrick Peterson, who, if anything else, will be a great presence in that backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the best player, but he'll be great for teaching and for the guys to learn from. Probably the best draft of this past season, in my opinion. Broderick Jones, offensive lineman. Joey Porter Jr., D-back. Darnell Washington, a tight end from Georgia, who was an absolute monster. He was sandwiched in between two defensive players from Wisconsin, a linebacker and a D lineman. We know what those guys represent out there in Wisconsin. So Pittsburgh does it again. I think that with the combination of Kenny Pickett going into his second year, George Pickens, I think will be proving himself to be the number one receiver on that roster. You have a good tight end in Freiermuth. You have a good number 2 receiver in Washington. I think Pittsburgh's only weakness really would be the offensive line and the running game. Defensively, we know what they represent. TJ Watt, top 3 defender in this league. Pittsburgh at 8.5. We know Tomlin doesn't go below 500, bro.
Yeah.
Over.
I'll give them the slight over too. I don't know how much over. I think it'll be slight, but look, it's Mike Tomlin. I think you're gonna have a better year from Kenny Pickett too. Another step forward. I think you're gonna have a better year from Najee. George Pickens he's on the breakout cusp. Darnell Washington, like you said. I mean, look, and then obviously you don't even have to name names on that defense because Tomlin always has it ready to go. So yeah, I think that slight over, but with Tomlin and the guys he has with this draft class and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if they make some noise.
Not surprised at all, bro. I mean, winning the division is a stretch. But
yeah. Wild card team though, and sneaking
sure.
a game in the playoffs.
For sure. Speaking of a wild card team, we have Baltimore at 9.5 over under. In our playoff game last year with Tyler Huntley, we almost knocked off Cincinnati to go to the AFC Championship, but a fumble return for a touchdown ended our dreams. In the offseason, we're trying to make those dreams a reality this year. We brought we brought Lamar back, paid him the big money. We brought over OBJ. We did lose Marcus Peters, but we brought in Rocky Sin as a DB to replace him. We drafted Zay Flowers. Offensively, I think this is the best unit Lamar Jackson has had, no question. For us to be able to draft a receiver in the first round and for him to be third on our depth chart is a great luxury. You guys have that same luxury over there in Minnesota. Lamar finally has weapons, man. I think a negative for our team, though, is our defense is probably going to take a step back. With that being said, though, we are a more balanced team overall. Yeah. Our run game is going to be solid. We don't need to utilize Lamar in the run game as much. We have 4 good running backs. Wide receivers, we have 3 guys that I could say I trust, and then Mark Andrews is a top 3 tight end. So I do have concerns with the offensive line a little bit, but outside of that, in the defensive secondary, I think we have big aspirations this year, no question. I'm going over on that 9.5. Easy.
Yeah, that's an easy over for me. I have big expectations for this team this year. Where I think Lamar is gonna show people who Lamar is and make those people who forgot realize that they made a mistake. Because this is the most playmaking help he's got since he's been there. That wide receiver room is loaded. I expect a big year. Probably, close to if not winning that Offensive Rookie of the Year from Zay Flowers. I think he has that potential. I think he's going to have that much of an impact on the game. So yeah, I think it's just going to come down to. I'm not going to call your defense bend but don't break because you're better than that. But like you said, slight step back, but with Harbaugh, I mean, look, he's another. I'm not going to put him up there put him in the same league as Tomlin, even though he does deserve some sort of conversation like that.
He's a tier right below, I think.
But his guys play for him. His guys trust him. Look, Baltimore is due to have, one of their classic Baltimore years where they are a top tier team in the league to watch week in and week out. And it's going to be an interesting battle between them and Seattle for that top spot. Cincinnati, I'm sorry.
If you think Zay Flowers is going to be offensive rookie of the year potential, is he our number 2 over Bateman, or is he the number 3? Because if he's the number 3, we have the best offense in the league. Because we still have Mark Andrews.
I think Zay Flowers is going to probably be that wide receiver number 2 over Bateman, because Bateman, I think he's going to have a bounce back year or bounce back year and put up some decent numbers this year. I'm going to look at it being, obviously Mark Andrews is going to be that number 1 target for Lamar, but he's going to not look his way as often as he would normally.
Right.
So you're going to have, I think, OBJ and Zay Flowers as his top 2 guys on the outside. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have Bateman, who can move the sticks and who can be that underneath guy along with Andrews. And that's going to just open it up for you guys.
I love what we did this offseason. These past 2 offseasons, it's been great. I think that's the easiest over for me of the day so far. Cincinnati, AFC North champions from last season, over under at 11.5. Brought over Trevor Siemian, brought over Orlando Brown, like I mentioned earlier, at left tackle to protect Joe Burrow's backside. 2 offensive guards to help solidify the offensive line even further. Drafted DJ Turner, a defensive back, Jordan Battle, a safety, probably to replace some of that productivity they're losing in Jesse Bates back there. Another offseason where they get major offensive line help. I think it's going to be a major key because I think their weapons are as good as anybody's in the league with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in the gang. Mixon's probably one of the most underrated players in the league, backs for sure. No Jesse Bates, which I think is going to be a problem, but they did get Daxton Hill last year from Michigan, who I think is going to have to prove himself in his second year. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, man, I think Cincinnati is 11.5. I mean, if they got Joe Burrow healthy, which I heard before the podcast, he's healthy, I'm going to have to go over on that.
Yeah, I'll go over with Cincinnati. I think it's going to be them and Baltimore duking it out for that top spot in that division. I could see it going either way, honestly, because I think Baltimore did enough with the roster. And obviously you paid Lamar. I think they have something to prove now. So they're going to go out there and they're going to do their best to dethrone Cincinnati as division champs. But it's still Cincinnati. I think you got to pay them their respect, which, they do get because they've been in that top team, that division the past couple of years. So while they might be missing some of those pieces with like Jesse Bates and whatnot, it's you still got Burrow, and they still got one of, if not the best, trio of wide receivers.
Yeah. Trio, I think that probably would be the best off the top of my head. Maybe, I mean, I can't put Seattle in there because they got a rookie. Chargers have a rookie. So, I mean, Bengals probably have the best trio. Tight ends are a little shaky, but Cincinnati for sure. I got the over for them. We'll head to the Midwest and finish it off with the NFC North. We will start with your rivals, the Green Bay Packers. 7.5 is the over-under. Obviously, they lose AR-12, and they bring in Jordan Love as a starting quarterback. Lucas Van Ness, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, 2 tight ends, who they're looking to replace the production of Robert Tonyan. Jaden Reed is a wide receiver who, I don't know, that core to me is kind of mediocre. Dobbs, I think, had his moments, and then Christian Watson came on strong towards the end of the season, but I think that was a little bit of fool's gold. I think this team really lacks weapons on the outside and in the middle. I do like the running back combination. Probably one of the better running back rooms in the league. Defensively, I guess you have Rashawn Gary, you have Jair Alexander, you have Preston Smith. You still have Kenny Clark, I believe. So the defense should be decent. I don't like your linebackers, but your front four and your back four are decent. Outside of that, it's just about Jordan Love, and he's just not ready. He's not the guy so far. Maybe he can take a giant leap this year. He's obviously going to have the chance to do it. He's going to see the field 17 different times this year. I got the under for Green Bay.
Yeah, look, honestly, I don't know what to expect from Jordan Love. I mean, it's either going to be a shit show or he's just going to surprise some people.
He'll definitely have his moments.
I think he'll have his moments as well. But I think the biggest thing for Green Bay is why they, will be probably around a 7-win team is due to their defense and them making those big plays for them. The offense, look, you got great running backs for a great run game, and you got healthy linemen coming back. Your O-line is decent, but yeah, like I think Dobbs is probably gonna be the top guy on the outside.
Probably so.
And then Watson, he's gonna be, I don't know if you want to call him a gadget player or just like your deep threat or whatever, but
they're both 2As, I guess.
It's just gonna come down to, can Jordan Love make plays and make them consistently.
Right.
So, but for now, give me the under because they're taking a big step back from going from Rodgers to Love.
Chicago, over and under at 7.5 as well. Their big move this offseason was bringing over DJ Moore, Robert Tonyan, who came from the Packers to Chicago at tight end position, and then offensive guard and Nate Davis. Also drafting Darnell Wright, offensive lineman out of Tennessee. So they're trying to help up Justin Fields with that front five, keep him protected. He is for sure their future. They did lose Roquan Smith. They traded him to Baltimore last year. They replaced him with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Two linebackers that are capable and I think are going to fit very well in the Chicago Bears scheme. You have O-line help, weapons for Fields now, who, I don't know, did he prove himself to be the best running quarterback last year?
Arguably.
I mean, he's for sure in that conversation. So you don't have the typical Chicago Bears defense that we're used to seeing. And I think that is the biggest concern for this team outside of Justin Fields and what his progression looks like this upcoming season.
Yeah.
I do have a slight under on the 7.5, but I do think they'll be better than the Packers.
Yeah, it's tough for me. I think 7.5 because I think Chicago is better than Green Bay overall. I want to say I'm going to go slight over with Chicago. I think they could be surprise people and be around 8 wins.
Mm-hmm.
But that's obviously going to come down to, can Fields do more than just run, use his legs?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have to. I mean, and that's why they brought DJ Moore. And I think so far the word is, they've hit it off, have great chemistry already, which would be a big boost for that offense. So, look, I'll give them the slight over at about 8 wins, and yeah, it's gonna. I think they can surprise some people this year. I do.
They did start 2-1 last year.
Like they're no slouch. I mean, the pieces they brought in there, they're gonna help. They're gonna be better than last year, and it's just they had a few games last year that were close, and they just couldn't clutch it up.
They were close. They just had no talent to help them clutch it up.
Yeah. And
young team, young coach, all the above. I think they will take a step forward this year. 8 wins, though. Okay, I like that. Detroit at 9.5 with the over-under. Brought over Montgomery at the running back position. C.J. Gardner-Johnson to replace Jeff Okudah, who probably had his best season as DB in the league so far, although he has been a little bit underwhelming as I think the number 4 pick out of Ohio State. Cam Sutton, another defensive back they brought to help that defensive unit. Drafted Brian Branch. Obviously, we know they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, probably stretched a little bit too high. Got him at 12 at running back. Jack Campbell, linebacker out of Iowa. 2 backs in, 2 backs out. I like the fit a lot more. I think Swift was a guy who was overhyped in my opinion, a guy I never really liked. I think Montgomery and Gibbs are going to be a better version of Williams and Swift.
Yep.
I think Gibbs can do a little more. I always have liked Williams a little more than I like Montgomery, but I can't deny that they do a lot of the same things, and they should probably be just as productive as each other. My concern with this team, again, though, the defensive secondary and the defensive unit as a whole, they don't really have any linebackers worth note. That unit is really what kind of held them back last year because the offense was elite. I think they finished top 5. At least they were for a majority of the season. Mm-hmm. Even with Jared Goff at quarterback, which I think they're fine with doing that again this year. They don't seem to have any reason not to be. They look like they doubled down on some weapons offensively. So Jared Goff is the guy. The offense, I think, will look just like it did last year. Aiden Hutchinson, I think, will take a big step. And I think this defense will take a small step, and this team will be a little bit better. 9.5. Wow. I'm going to go. What they finished last year?
I don't remember, honestly.
9.5.
I think it was 9 and 8.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over.
Look, I'll tell you right now. I got them slightly over 9.5.
Fuck.
But I will say, for every reason you said, I mean, look, I like what they're doing over there. I like Dan Campbell. I'm a huge fan. But look, I've always said that I've never found them as, thought of them as a rival. I have no problem rooting for them because, I know what their fans have gone through, and it's tough, credit to those diehard fans who stuck by that team year in and year out. But look, the hype has gotten way too out of hand this offseason for this team. It's almost like they're anointing this team to go to the NFC Championship for some reason. And I don't see it. And look, they have an opportunity to be good, make the playoffs, and maybe get a game, win a game in playoffs. But look, the hype is way too much. You still have Jared Goff as your quarterback. Don't tell me he's elite because I don't want to hear it. He can move the offense very well.
Hey man, he's not elite at all.
Look, it's just the hype, and I think Lions fans are just letting it get to their head a little bit. So I think you guys have to. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and going a little over 9.5 wins with 10 wins, but let's knock it down a notch because you're not them. You're not them, bro. Like,
this is the most hesitant I've been on this over. I do want to mention that they did draft Hendon Hooker. So if he turns out to be anything like he was at Tennessee, going forward, this team in the future, I know that's not what we're doing today. Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, weapons like that, the offense will be crazy. 9.5, geez. I really want to say under, but I think they will go about 10-7. Next, we have Minnesota at 8.5, over under. I'll let you take it from here, man.
Look, with it 8, I can understand why they put it at 8.5. Obviously, that's stemming from our defense last year. But I'm pounding the table for over 8.5. That's an easy over.
That's probably the second easiest over behind Baltimore's to me. Yeah, I agree.
I think
that's disrespectful.
Our floor is 10-7.
That is it. I think your floor is 8. I think your ceiling's like 11. You think your floor is 10-7?
Yeah, I'm not because look, I'm saying that because that's
your schedule's tough.
It is tough, but I think people need to. I mean, look, fair questions across the defense. Those are still there. Obviously, the depth is very concerning on this team. We have to stay healthy.
True.
But I think, bro, our offense is so good. I mean, you got concerns in the interior of the line. I'm not trying to boast our offense like that, but because we do have concerns still. But if we can keep Cousins protected well this year, if we can hold up and protect him better than we have, and give him just a little bit more time, you're gonna see an even better Kirk Cousins this year. I think he's due for that career. I'm not gonna call it a career year, but along those lines, because I think if he does it this year, I think you got to stop disrespecting him. You got to give him his kudos. You got to give him his love, give him his flowers, whatever you want to say. He is. If
he does what exactly?
Leads our team to the playoffs again. I'll say that. He and if he's throwing for, but I'm saying if he knocks the interceptions down as well, if he's throwing for.
Give me a game. Give me a win in the playoffs.
But look, to get a win, even in the NFC in the playoffs, is going to be tough.
And a competitive second round loss to the Niners.
Because look, I mean,
then we'll talk about respect.
Fair enough, but I think with Kirk, and obviously I keep up with the team in even the off season, like with interviews and like just his persona, his personality. It's kind of, there's something about him that's different. It's just like he knows who he is. He's confident. He has that confidence. He's showing it. And I think this year we're going to see him. Look, it's his first year since he's been here that he's had the same offensive system, same coordinator, everything. That's going to pay huge dividends for him this year. And people are overlooking that, I think. Look, we have JJ, obviously. You got TJ Hawkinson. Obviously, he's been whatever. I think something has to do with his contract. He wants to be paid, but who knows? But he's still he can't sit out. He's gonna play. So we got JJ, we got TJ.
Yeah, you've been sitting out your whole career. You've been unhealthy. What do you?
Then look, you're gonna get I'm not gonna call it a breakout year, but you're gonna have a better year, another step forward from KJ Osborne. He's gonna be a good number 2. I'm gonna put him at number 2 because I think Addison, they're bringing him along a little slowly, but he's obviously shown in clips throughout training camp and preseason, like the talent's there with this guy. Like I'm not gonna put him in JJ's league or anything like that right now, but he has the potential to be a number 1 receiver in my eyes. And I think our offense is just gonna be that high powered.
Better than Marquise Brown?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what concerns me though is we do have to find a way to be able to effectively run the ball. You lost Dalvin, obviously. You're turning it over to Alexander Madison, who can give you those tough yards, but he's not
the breakaway guy.
No. And so then you got Ty Chandler as a backup, but then today we just signed Myles Gaskin.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought him in. I'm guessing he's going to be that change of pace guy.
Yep.
And I've liked what I've seen from Myles Gaskin in his career so far. Not gaudy numbers or anything, but he's a great pass catcher. Mm-hmm. He can move the chains. I just really have big expectations for this offense, but I'm still down on the Vikings in a sense because that defense just scares me. I think overall talent on defense, there's not much to say about it, but I think bringing in Byron Murphy is going to help. He's going to be able to lock down the not number 1 receiver, but they're
the 2 main guys you brought over are talented. That'll help. Him and Davenport.
Davenport's going to have to put up some sack numbers this year because he hasn't been. For sure. He hasn't been.
Well, how about Danielle Hunter?
Well, him too. Danielle,
put the freaking curl bar down and go get a sack.
Yeah, I agree. But I think talent not being is what you want on defense overall. You got B-Flow running the defense now and not Ed Donato.
Yeah.
That alone, we're going to mix up coverages. We're going to mix up fronts. People are going to be lining up all over the place.
That should get you from whatever you were, 30th ranked to 18th.
Middle of the pack. Yeah. If we're a top 5, top 7 offense, and then you got middle of the pack defense.
That's good enough to...
Look.
Yeah.
You can make noise in the playoffs.
A lot of noise.
So it's going to just come down to offense. Look, and that's why I say if our defense is still doing the shit they did last year for some reason, our offense is going to be putting up points. So it's going to be a barn burner each game at the worst with us.
The offense was great last year. They should take a step forward. What were you, 11-0 in one-score games?
It was something crazy.
10-0, 11-0? That won't happen again.
No. That's a fluke. And look. But at the same time, as a Vikings fan, you can't not have it in the back of your mind that it's going to be a letdown year, it's always there.
Yeah, it's always there, bro.
So nothing surprises me with this team anymore. I just kind of go with the flow. But I do have, the biggest thing is I have huge expectations for this offense. I think O'Connell and Kirk Cousins working together for a second year in a row is going to be huge for us. And I think they're going to know what they want to do. They're going to be able to game plan each week better with each other, feed off of each other.
You brought Bradbury back. I think you have the same 5 offensive linemen.
We do.
So you really have continuity throughout the whole team.
Yeah.
Not just the roster. So I think that's going to be a great sign for Kirk Cousins and this team going forward this year. This 8.5 is disrespectful.
It is. That's why I say I pound the table for over, because look, call last year what it was: shitty defense, great offense, 1-score games up the ass, and we choke in the playoffs the first game against the freaking Giants. But I saw that coming though. Like, I was saying it all year long. I was saying.
What did I pick that game? I thought I picked you.
You did. We both did.
No fucking way.
And I did that just because, look, it's my squad. I'm not gonna say.
It's got to be the Chiefs or the Bengals.
Look.
Otherwise, I'm Baltimore.
Big things from the offense this year. And look. With offense and the playmakers we got besides JJ and TJ, Addison and Osborne, you can double JJ all you want. You can't. I mean, we don't have. Look, we moved off of Adam Thielen, who showed, his age last year. Started to show his age. He wasn't that guy last year for us who you could count on getting, those 20-yard receptions that we're used to seeing him get. Mm-hmm. He's more of that, like he's going to be for Carolina this year, and that Bryce Young rookie quarterback. He's going to move the chains, be that sure-handed
600 yards, 3 touchdown kind of guy.
So I expect big things from this offense. I'm looking forward to see what this defense does. I think they'll play with a lot of fire in them. I think they're going to love playing for B-Flow. And look, when you got a coordinator or, a guy like B-Flow coming over to call your defense, who is a Bill Belichick guy, was a head coach, and now he just spent a year under Mike Tomlin. He's got a lot of shit up his sleeves.
Yeah, no shit. That's a great sign, bro. Anything else on Minnesota or this division in general? For me, I think my only concern for you, like you touched on, is that back 7, but I think bringing Byron Murphy over will help. Bringing Davenport over to get more pressure on the quarterback will help. Outside of that, I think the linebackers are the biggest concern for me. Losing a guy like Eric Hendricks, not really replacing them with anybody worth note. Mm-hmm. So, although I love B-Flow,
he's got his hands full.
He has his hands full for sure. Yeah, I think the personnel is just my biggest issue,
and that's why I said, look, as Vikings fans, we got to be realistic, and B-Flow is not going to be here all that long. Like he's gonna get another head coaching shot,
and then he'll win over there.
So. He's going to, like I said, you bring us from almost worst defense in the league to middle of the pack. That's a huge jump.
That's all we need.
So,
what I said, episode 1 in the books.
Until next week, when we get shit kicked off.
Yes, sir. Season starts Thursday. Who's the game?
Kansas City versus Detroit.
No shit. That's going to be fun as fuck. Yes, sir. KC versus Detroit. Who you got?
I'm going KC.
Ring ceremony.
Yep, but this is gonna be a pivotal. It's gonna be right off the bat, pivotal point in the season for Detroit. This is what they're proving to the world was watching.
That is a game.
The world is watching. We're gonna know what Detroit is made of against a top tier team.
Uniform predictions. Detroit's going gray.
They're going all white.
Yeah, nah, Chiefs are going white.
Chiefs at home all white.
Mm-hmm.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
No, they'll go with the classic reds.
The red, those aren't even fire like that. Those are weak looking. You got to go whites. Maybe they'll come with some alternates. They wouldn't even look the blacks. They wouldn't be decent with that yellow and red they got. No. Anyway, until next time, bro.
All right, bro.